Welcome to Thoughts and Bolts. It's Pedro. How do UFOs fly? How UFOs fly? Let's get into it because it's mysterious. 1952, Germany, Project Blue Book files. An egg shaped luminescent object is recorded as having flown through the sky. Egg shaped. Now let's look at Maelstrom Air Force Base, 1967. Signed affidavit by Bob Solis, one of the Air Force men in charge of our nukes. A UFO appears, turns off all the nukes, and what does it look like? A large, glowing, pulsating, red, oval shaped object. Okay, let's look at Brazil 10 years later in Colares. What do we have? A red, luminescent, oval shaped object. Let's look at Italy 1 year later. What do we have? A luminescent, oval, red object. Okay, let's look at Socorro, New Mexico, Lani Zamora case, UFO landing, an oval shaped object. Valençol, an oval shaped object. Okay. Jacques Vallée and Paola Harris compared the Valençol Socorro cases to an earlier case, another UFO crash that happened in 1945 with what was described as a flying avocado. Now, the Tic Tac encounter 2004, a flying Tic Tac, a flying butane tank. Okay, no wings, no visible means of propulsion. These kind of things go back far, back into the 1950s, back into 1945, the 60s, the 70s, all over the world, Italy, Germany, Brazil, New Mexico, France, you name it. Okay, so this is nothing new. How do they fly? I think Harold Putoff has the best theory as to how they fly. Okay, the way I understand it, as someone who was a humanities major and did not get past trigonometry, is to think about it like a black hole. Okay, think about that movie Interstellar. Okay, think about all the things that are true the closer you get to a sun or a black hole with regards to time, space, the way light bends, okay, the way gravity works, okay? And just imagine that an engineered space-time metric inside a UFO that has an engineered warp bubble, as it were, everything is opposite, okay? So think of a black hole, but in reverse. Think of a black hole, but an anti-black hole, okay? This is Spider-Man, and this is Venom. That's the way you have to think about this. Now, I'm going to get into more detail. Within an engineered space-time metric, time runs faster. That's right. So in Interstellar, when Matthew McConaughey's spaceship was orbiting that black hole, 7 days for him were like 30 years for his daughter back on Earth, right? But within the warp bubble of a UFO, the exact opposite happens. So if you imagine a flying saucer lands in your grandpa's farm, you go inside it, they give you a 6 hour joyride across the solar system. It's amazing. 6 hours, you're gone. You come back, you tell your friends, oh my God, I was in a UFO flying around for 6 hours. And they'll say, what are you crazy? You were only gone 6 minutes, right? This is what happens. And I think that's what might explain the crazy speeds evinced in the Lakenheath case and in the Nimitz case, right? The Lakenheath UFO traveled at an estimated 12,000 miles per hour without a sonic boom. In the Nimitz case, descending from space down to sea level, these things were going 104,000 miles an hour. Flying more horizontally, they were flying at 13,000 miles an hour estimated. So, how do you do this without a sonic boom, without splattering against the wall? Well, the probability is that they're not really flying that fast, right? They're in a different space time. They're in a warp bubble. They've engineered space time, and they might just be going 10 miles an hour or 30 miles an hour from their perspective. But from our perspective, because they're covering so much space so quickly, it looks like, oh my God, this guy covered what 60,000 feet in 1 second. Oh my gosh, he must be going faster than 10,000 miles per hour. Oh, he covered 6 miles in only 60 miles in only 6 seconds. He must be going faster than 10,000 miles per hour. And how did he do that without splattering against the wall, without making a sonic boom? Again, I think it's because time is actually going slower for us compared to what's inside the warp bubble of that UFO. Okay. Now, energy states raised. The safest place to be with regards to a flying saucer or a tic tac or an egg is inside of it or very far from it. Okay. In the Socorro and Valensole cases, there was landing and they burned the ground they landed on. Same thing happened in Trans and Provence. Okay. With the Falcon Lake, Randlesham, and Cash Landrum cases, people actually got injured. So that is Mr. Michalek. He touched the flying saucer and he got burned. You can see the burn marks on his stomach that look like a grill. Doctor reports suspected he had radiation poisoning. Okay. Randlesham Forest, even worse. Cash Landrum, even worse. Okay. So look up those cases for yourself. Now, spatial measure. A lot of people say, "Oh my gosh, it's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. That must be related to consciousness." No, there is a physical explanation for this. If you look at Carl Higdon, the Sanfreda case, Catherine and Joe from the John Mack book, they all describe the inside of the UFO as being bigger than the outside of the UFO. In the Carl Higdon case, he entered a transparent cube, a cube, a square that was like 7 feet tall, 7 feet wide, and somehow he and three other human-sized, full-grown male-sized aliens fit inside that with 6 elk. Okay, so the inside was bigger than the outside. Zanfredo talks about how he went inside the thing and he said, "Oh my gosh, there's a city in here." Okay, in the other two cases, you can read the MacBook for yourself, but this has a physical explanation for it. It's an engineered space-time metric. Okay. The reason I like this model is because it is productive. It helps you understand things and explain things potentially. Take the Dr. X case in France. His name is Dr. X because he never wanted his name revealed because he's a physician and he has a reputation to uphold. Remember, this is way back in the day before UFOs were kind of mainstream. But basically, you can read about this case in Invisible College and you can watch Think Anomalous. Think Anomalous has amazing UFO videos. You should just watch that channel. Please do. But this is what happens. Dr. X, he goes into his like living room area with his baby boy. And it's like a second floor, and then there's a big kind of like window looking out, like a window wall looking out to outside, right? And I'm guessing, just for the sake of argument, you'll see why later, that he's facing north, right? And what does he see? He sees two flying saucers, okay, with a pillar of light coming down from the bottom, right? And he doesn't see a warp bubble. I added that in just so you can imagine what I think is happening, okay? He sees two flying saucers. They're flying from the right to the left, and when they get into the middle of his field of view, they merge into one, right? They merge into one, and then they flip. This one flying saucer flips over on its side with the pillar of light now facing him. I think this is a refractive index effect. So look, what do I mean by that? If you read the put off paper, you can pause this to read it more in detail if you want, but he talks about refractive index effects, how light might bend as it passes through one of these engineered space-time matrices. So if you can imagine like a goldfish inside a big fish tank, right? From a certain perspective, you might think, "Oh my gosh, there's three fish." But no, that's just the way, an illusion created by the way light is bending within the fish tank. Same thing with a pencil in a glass of water, right? "Oh my gosh, there's two pencils." No, there's actually one. It's just light is bending through the water in such a way to make it appear as if they're two. And I think that's what happened here. Light was bending in a certain way. I believe that the warp bubble was in a more horizontal orientation, a wider orientation, and as it went into more vertical orientation, a thinner orientation, that created the illusion of two becoming one. Now, I think that if you were facing the west, hypothetically, right, facing from a different perspective, you would just see the one flying saucer, and you would see it flip onto its side, like Bob Lazar talks about, and you would see the light shooting inside Dr. X's house. Okay, there was only one craft. Okay, that's what I think based on um, Kudov's theory. Now, the burn on his stomach. He had a burn on his stomach, so did his baby boy. How is that explained? I think that is explained through the way light propagates inside a space-time, an engineered space-time metric. Okay, so normally you have what's called redshift and blue shift, right? So imagine a campfire, right? Or imagine just like any other kind of light source, like some gas light, whatever. Okay, the closer you get to the campfire, the warmer it is. The closer you get to the campfire, the brighter it is. Okay, the further you get away from the campfire, the dimmer it is, the less bright it is, right? The less hot it is, right? And the same, but within an engineered space-time metric, the opposite is true. Okay, it's hard to imagine, but that's what would happen, right? You would blue shift as you get away from it, and red shift as you get closer to it. So I think what happened was when this thing was now the light from that beam was pointing to his house. I think it was an ion thruster, some kind of ionic propulsion. Okay. Human beings invented this in 1952. So I think the UFO is using an engineered space-time metric to stay in the air, right? It's anti-gravity. But I think the pillar of light is actually an artifact from the an ion thruster. And you would expect, okay, to be injured the closer you are to it, right? You wouldn't expect to be injured inside your house through a glass window. But I think as that thing took off, right, in like an extraordinary speed, so fast that it appeared to him as if it just disappeared with a big like thunderous sound. I think he got burned. He got a sunburn. Okay, so he wasn't close enough to get cancer, thank God, or get a second-degree burn or a third-degree burn or something like. But he was in a range where it would burn him if it took off, using that engineered space-time metric. So I mean, I'm not a scientist. I didn't get past trigonometry in college, okay? But I think reading Puthoff's paper that might be what happened, okay? As it left, it blue shifted, okay? And that created a sunburn on him and his baby's stomach. Thank God it was only that. If you want to know more, I recommend you read these two Defense Intelligence reference documents. One on it's basically the one on the left is almost identical to the paper I used for this video. The one on the right is about negative mass propulsion. And you can find them on DIA FOIA. So these are all free. You could get it for yourself. And that's it. So thank you for watching my video. Godspeed and